there is a general lack of agreement on the structure of James. It is seen as a group of homilies, or short sermons. There is a great deal of emphasis on moral actions and very little theological argument within the letter. This doesn't mean that there is no structure. However, there appears to be three repeating themes in the letter. First is the idea of having faith during trials, then there is the idea of wisdom, and then wealth. This cycle repeats 4 times. The problem is that the material doesn't nicely fit into these cycles. Generally speaking, the first cycle includes chapter 1 verses 2 to 4, which refers to testing. Then verses 5 to 8, which deals with lacking wisdom, and then verses 9 to 11, which deals with the lowly boasting and wealth passing away. The second cycle starts at chapter 1 verse 12, where temptations are discussed until verse 16. Verses 17 until 27 where wisdom is not just words but actions. Then in chapter 2 verse 1 until 13, the idea of partially between rich and poor is discussed. The third cycle starts in chapter 2 verse 14, which speaks on the faith. Then in chapter 3 the concept of wisdom, particularly wisdom in taming the tongue, is discussed. Finally in chapter 5 verse 1 to 6 the concept of the rich oppressing others is discussed. The final cycle starts in chapter 5 verse 7, where faith and suffering are mentioned again. Then from verse 12 it refers back to wisdom, and the final verse 2 verses is a call to stop sinning. As mentioned, there are 3 key themes. These are suffering from your faith, the need for wisdom, and the problems of wealth. With respect to suffering, Jesus deals with the question of sin causing suffering. However, James takes this idea a bit further. He adds that not all suffering is the cause of sin. Job also deals with that, but for many Jews the idea that the sinful suffer was deep in their theology. Since it is a strong theme in the book, unjust suffering is probably a situation being faced in the church at the time when James wrote. James points out 3 sources of suffering. The first is our own bad choices and our own sinful desires. If we chose to follow our own sinful desires, we can suffer negative consequences. The second cause for suffering in James is the rich and those of high status. They can use their influence to inflict suffering on others, and the third is Satan. Satan wants to bring suffering upon people. The concept of sin is also a theme of the letter of James. The letter draws on 2 ideas as the source of sin. One is the evil desires within us, and therefore we are responsible for choosing to do the right thing and not the evil thing. But there is also the influence of Satan and the demonic working to bring us into sin. The answer here is to submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee.